Good morning, friends. Welcome to the choir. We are so glad that you're here. I am going to start us off with the brief guided meditation. So, what I want you to do is just make yourself comfortable, whether you're sitting down, whether you are lying down, whatever it is that you're doing, get your body in sort of a still position that's comfortable for you. And then when you're comfy, I want you to close your eyes. And if closing your eyes isn't comfortable for you, you can, bring down your eyelids about halfway, 3/4 of the way, or just soften your gaze. Focus on something out in space ahead of you. That works too. And as you make yourself comfortable, I want you to start by just tuning in to your breath. So noticing the ways that your breath naturally is flowing in and out of your body. And right now, we're not trying to change the breath yet. We're just noticing it. So maybe your breath is really quick. Maybe your breath is nice and slow on its own. Maybe you don't really pay attention to your breath throughout the day. That's true for so many of us. I was talking to someone the other day who said, I really don't ever stop to just pay attention to my breathing. And I think that's such a common experience that so many of us move through the day without really focusing in on the fact that we are breathing all day. And so right now, we're just taking a moment to tune our awareness into that. And as you notice the quality of your breath now, what I want you to do is then really focus on breathing deeply in through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose and out through your mouth. And keep going even as I'm talking, continuing to breathe first in through your nose, then out through your mouth. And noticing how even bringing more intentionality to the breath can really ground us in a way that we don't feel in a normal day when our breathing is sort of automatic and we're not mindful of it. And as you breathe here, I want you to notice as well, either by placing a hand on your chest, a hand on your belly, maybe both. I want you to notice the way that your abdomen rises and falls, that your chest rises and falls with your breath. As you breathe in through your nose, noticing how your body expands with that air. And then as you exhale, feel that space closing in. Just noticing the expansiveness of your breath. And as you continue to breathe here, I want you to notice particularly the space around your heart. Also near your lungs as you're breathing. And I want you to imagine as you breathe in, not only are your lungs expanding, is your chest expanding, but that your heart is also opening and expanding. I find it can feel nice, as you breathe in through the nose and as you focus on that exhale. The exhale can be nice just to breathe out gently, but it can also feel really nice to sort of sigh out that breath. So breathing in through your nose and sighing out through your mouth. Feeling that space open as you inhale, filling with air, and then on the exhale, feeling that rush out. And even as that space isn't filled with air, we feel it expand as we inhale. But as we exhale and the air leaves our body, we're just as aware of the openness that we've created there, right? In the absence of the air filling our lungs. Continuing to inhale. I'm really using this time to tune into any thoughts that you're carrying into this space, any residual feelings that you're bringing with you. And not dismissing those things as negative, not really viewing those things with any particular value at all, but as neutral, right? That's really the goal of meditation, I think, is to find ways to be present with what we're thinking and feeling in a given moment in a way that doesn't place a value judgment on it. In a way that we can just acknowledge the expansiveness within ourselves. We can hold space for that we can get really present with that. And really ground ourselves to be open to what we're going to hear today. And I would invite you to remember that you can always return to this place anywhere that you are. You have the ability to tune into your breath, to simply, with intention, breathe in through your nose and exhale through your mouth and reconnect with that breath. Take a few more deep breaths here. In through your nose and out through your mouth. And you can begin to bring your awareness back into the room, back into your body by wiggling fingers and toes. Maybe rolling your head from side to side, rolling your shoulders. And when you're ready, you can softly open your eyes.
Morning, everybody. Welcome to the choir, our pre-recorded service here. It's great to see you and have you be a part of our community. I've loved the last few weeks of our series that we were calling It's All Greek to Me, where we took some passages, some messages of Jesus, and we looked at whether our understanding today really matched what we think Jesus was talking about. I think growing up in the church or just being around Christian culture, many of the messages and the spirit of what Jesus was teaching have been co-opted, have been corrupted through time and history. I mean, Jesus did not mean to teach us that God the Father is more punitive than redemptive. He did not mean to teach us that only individual sins matter more than what we do as a collective body, as a community. And he did not mean to teach us that, like, the main block to heaven is just the riches that we have, right? It's our eye block. It's our pride and lust for power that get in the way of seeking what is good for all society, right? And I think the takeaway of all of these conversations we've been having is that Jesus taught us that we are all meant to be loved, heard, redeemed, and free. That's a good message. These are important ideas that we've been wrestling with as we navigate what it means for us as the choir to be a spiritual community, to be a people of faith, growing and learning together. And this week we're starting a new conversation. It's Women's History Month, it's Gender History Month, and we're going to spend the next several weeks talking about gender. And but I think it's not really like a new topic from what we've been talking about. Like, I think this is the right continuation of the past 4 weeks, because gender is also a topic that's greatly misunderstood. and that I think people take for granted. I mean, especially in our political discourse, you hear so much about biology. You're either a boy or a girl, and there's no other options. That's the capital T truth. There's no room for understanding the world another way as we think about gender. And many people will look at the Bible to justify this perspective, and they'll say, look, male and female, he created them. Voila, there we go. It's plain as day in Scripture. And I think as we talk over the next 4 weeks, we're going to see together that if we reduce gender to that, to just boy and girl, what it means to be manly and what it means to be feminine, then we're really just reducing the truths of our observation, the truths of human history, the truth of our bodies, the truth of God to a lie. So today my hope is that we open our minds, we open our hearts to something new, even if it's a little uncomfortable, even if it's like food that's a little bit too spicy. I hope that we can push ourselves to accept something with a little more flavor than like white toast. Okay? Are you with me? So I want to start by talking about deconstruction, because really I think that's what we've been like dipping our toes in over the last few weeks, is like deconstructing our faith. And that word deconstruction can be a boogeyman for some people. It can be scary. I mean, it's meant to mean that you're rethinking your beliefs, that you're digging deeper, that you're trying to understand at a richer level your faith. But I think for some, the word deconstruction just means people walking away from the faith altogether, or downing it to such a degree that faith can't hold together anymore. And I think that's a real fear. And it's a fear that I felt, in 2015, I was living in Nashville, and I was having coffee with a friend of mine who was a PhD student. She also had an MDiv, grew up in the church, was Methodist from Mississippi, also happened to be married to a woman. And she'd been a long time advocate for LGBT inclusion in the church, and we were having coffee because I was trying to help her with a paper about the politics and the religious discourse around religious freedom, because I have a lot of close knowledge about the conservative side of those arguments. And in a personal moment, as we were sharing, I was talking about why I felt more comfortable in a conservative, Reformed Presbyterian church I was attending at the time. I mean, I had just been starting to date AJ, my now wife, but we were still going to this like really conservative church, and we were doing that, and I told her because I felt like the doctrine, the apologetics, the creed gave you a sense of like being a train on the straight track, and I could just run and cruise and feel secure in my train on this track. And I felt like if I was going to rethink all of the ideas that kept my train on this track, I might get derailed. And if I was going to accept my identity as a queer woman and be with AJ, I didn't know where that would take me. I felt vulnerable. It felt like I would lose security. I would lose the definitions of sin that I had, and therefore my definition of righteousness. I would lose my definition of hell and damnation, and therefore also my definition of salvation and heaven. I would have to reconstruct my whole theology. And in 2015, that felt really overwhelming. As in this community where we categorize ourselves as progressive Christians, I think so many of us have faced this kind of a turning point in our lives. Like mine happened to be around my sexuality, but I know for others here the turning point was about racism or about Trump or about women in leadership. We got to this point where the structure of the ideas of our faith didn't match what we saw in the world, didn't match our experience, didn't match our understanding of what is love. And so then we come here and we found our inclusive community where we care about gay people, we care about poverty, we care to redefine Christianity. We found this new train to run on, and we're gaining speed, and we feel like we're not going to be derailed, right? We're here. It's so beautiful and wonderful. And then we're going to have a conversation about gender. And for some of us, that might feel like we're going too far. The train might derail. We're back in a place of vulnerability as we wrap our heads around new ideas that are new to us, right? Like, what is it to be gender fluid, binary, non-binary, trans, gender non-conforming, cis? Like, these, it's like new words, new topics, and it might make some of us feel a little uncomfortable. But let me assure you that this is a safe place to be uncomfortable. And let me assure you that these ideas we're going to talk about over the next 4 weeks are not new. That these conversations about what it means to be human and what it means to be an embodied person with certain characteristics and features and certain ways that we express ourselves in society, these are conversations that have been going on for time immemorial, and they are not black and white. And when we can let go and when we can dig into the deconstruction, we're going to find something more good and true and beautiful. As I was researching this week, I came across some teaching by Rabbi Danya Ruttenberg. And I follow her on Twitter, and she's really a delight. So I encourage you to go look. But she talks about old rabbinic legends, the Midrash, where rabbis are looking at scripture and trying to tease out as much of the mystery and the beauty as they could. And they look at the first couple of chapters of Genesis. They look at the creation of human beings, and they're confused, right? Because it says in Genesis 1:27, God created man in God's image. In the image of God, he created it, male and female, he created them. But then this other part happens in Genesis 2, where God creates man and woman. And so between these two texts, how do the rabbis interpret what's going on here, right? And in one version, in one hypothetical possibility that the rabbis come up with, they say God created a person in chapter 1, and that person was intersex and didn't align to our current categories of male and female, right? And in chapter 2, when God creates the second person, he separates the intersex person, and then you have man and woman, male and female bodies. And so God has created already the spectrum of gender by having in a human body form the intersex, and then by having in the human form male and female. It's much more complicated, right? And she goes on, you can go look at some of the teaching that Rabbi Ruttenberg has outlined and talked about, lots of gender bendy stuff in the Jewish tradition, right? Lots of about how they read the story of Joseph, for example, or what they think about Isaac. There's lots of room in certain sects of Jewish thought and history to see that there is not a black and white binary understanding of what it means to be a gendered human. And so the point that I'm trying to get at is that from the earliest histories of religion, teachers and leaders saw and understood that gender was something that was not either or. It was wider, it was bigger, because God is wider and bigger. And if we are made in the image of God, there is much more than just two options on the table for who we are and who we were made to be. God is a rainbow. God is beyond what we can imagine. And as we see in our text this week in John 1, God is the Word. In the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. What a mystery for the Gospel of John to open up in this way and to say, in the beginning was the Word. It's not in the beginning was this very concrete defined being. In the beginning was an idea. In the beginning was something spoken. In the beginning there was. It's bigger. It's broader. And as we lean into that, we see the glory. And so this month we're going to lean into that mystery. We're going to open our minds to conversations and stories about how we all experience gender, and also about the traumas we experience and as men and women and non-binary folks. We each have our stories, and we're going to learn. I mean, there's so much history and language here and work that practitioners who talk about gender have done to make this a rich conversation. And we're going to lean into it. We're going to send you podcasts to listen to. We're going to send you things to read, and we encourage you to get educated, bring it up. And at the end of the month, we're going to have a family meeting where we have a conversation, all of us together, and we learn and go deeper. But before we get there, for a moment, I just want to talk about why. Why are we going to spend a whole month just talking about gender? Why are we in this? And I gotta say, this is like my own personal ranting post about how the church talks about issues of both gender and sexuality. And I think, so often we like to look at issues as concrete and particular, right? So we might talk about a woman who is survived domestic violence and trauma and abuse and intimate partner violence. And we might think about all of the particulars about what happened, what led to that, what resources that woman needs. And we might go deep and talk about the system that supports that. Or we might talk about spaces where gay people are not affirmed and why that happens and why the system happens. And really, those things are not mutually exclusive categories. Like the way we talk about trans issues, the way we talk about women's rights, the way we talk about all these things, gender and sexuality, they're not separate. They're not mutually exclusive. It's all interconnected, and we need to develop a holistic framework, a holistic view of what it means for humans to flourish as gendered, embodied people. We need to connect the violence, it's not an accident that there is Me Too out in what we talk about as secular culture, and there's church too, where there's abuses happening inside our communities, our faith communities, just as if we're out there in a business. And we need to confront that. We cannot be just good on welcoming gay people and not be speaking out to protect children from sexual abuse in our churches. We have to do both and we do it because we understand that there is a good, true, beautiful message about what it means to be people with sexual desire. And so we're going to talk about gender. We're not really going to talk about sexuality all that much in the next 4 weeks, but we're going to continue to talk about these issues and deepen our understanding, our richness around gender so that we can see the connections. It's also connected to race and white supremacy culture, and we're going to be building those connections too, and we're going to see that underneath it all, as we're deconstructing our faith, we're going to reconstruct something that is more connected, more integrated, more good, true, and beautiful than what we had before, and kind of these disparate conversations about what is exactly right in this circumstance and what is exactly wrong. Okay, you following me? We're also going to do our best to build skills and to come together and to continue practice to listen and love and support each other in ways that are good. Because as we're having an openness, as we're learning, as we're exposing our curiosity to these new ideas, we also need to do that in a respectful way. We also need to be mindful of who's in the room. And so we're going to talk about microaggressions in the next four weeks. We're going to talk about how we educate ourselves and how we show up in space and time in a way that creates safety, that creates a space for bravery and vulnerability like we want to see in our community. And I'm just so excited about what's to come. And I want to encourage us. For some of us, these conversations about gender are like so personal. They're top of mind all the time because maybe we are gender fluid. Maybe you don't fit within the binary structure of our society. But for others, these topics are new and uncomfortable and potentially feel like we're gonna go off that train track, right? And that's okay. No matter where you are in the terms of your comfort level with these topics, the choir is a welcome place to learn and to grow. You know, we live in a cis, hetero, white patriarchy that shuts down learning, that shuts down disagreement and confusion, and doesn't open up a place for us to really explore and learn. And in this process, we are going to earnestly attempt to have a conversation that can deepen our understanding of what it means to be human and give us a more good, true, and beautiful picture of what it means that we are all made in the image of God. I hope that you stick with us, join us on a Sunday morning, and know that God is love and love is with you. Amen.